So, Josh, I was thinking about doing another creature feature. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that'd be a lot of fun. What would you want to talk about?
Well, I feel like I'd want it to be more fun. The last one's kind of dark. I think this one could be a whale of a good time.
Yeah, something that our viewers would be sorrow bound to watch
Mm.
until it's completely finished.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because their time is so valuable. It's almost like beautiful in a way, and like we wanna hoard their time on our channel. So we really appreciate that. It's got to be good.
Yeah, and I want our ideas and like concepts and all that kind of stuff to kind of like flow through us and through the video and just right to your viewers, almost like with like an incorporeal
Mm.
movement. Is it just kind of right to
Yeah,
them, you know?
I feel like if Michael ends up watching this, he's not gonna feel like these puns. He's just not gonna detect any life in them.
Yeah. They probably have a bit of a corrupting touch on him.
Which will lead to him having a horrifying visage. Hmm.
Which will probably give him some sort of a divine wrath, you might say.
Yeah. So, well, this creature feature is all about the Banshee, so let's get started.
Hey everybody, I'm Josh. Welcome to JNJtabletop. This is J and Jake underscore, and today we're going to be doing another creature feature. And I'm glad we're doing this because I have a lot of fun with the creature features. Something we've been wanting to do for a while, and we had a good response to the last one, so we're going to keep them up this week. If you couldn't figure it out, talking about banshees. Banshees are a lot of fun. They're one of my favorite like low level monsters to really like throw at some players and spice things up and freak them out a little bit, make them not feel as tough as they think they are.
Yeah, it has that potential, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it's interesting too because they have. I mean, it's something that's been in the game since first edition, and they have definitely changed a lot through the editions. But since this is fifth edition, you want to tell us a little bit about what the current edition of the game has to say about it?
So, the basic lore behind a Banshee is it is a spiteful creature that has been formed from the spirit of a female elf. There's a few things that I think are fun. So, I'm just going to read this one passage because I think it's just a nice way to frame this. Banshees are the undead remnants of elves who, blessed with great beauty, failed to use their gift to bring joy to the world. Instead, they used their beauty to corrupt and control others. Elves afflicted by the Banshee's curse experience no gladness, feeling only distress in the presence of the living. As the curse takes its toll, their minds and bodies decay until death completes their transformation into undead monsters. I mean, this is going to add some horror to your games and could let you tell some really fun historical dark tales. And the thing I think is so cool with this, it's like a classic like oh behave or or like don't cross your eyes, they'll stay like that forever. This is like the story that like
Right.
Beauty and the Beast style, like you're a jerk and you're not, you're very attractive, but you're not using it for good things, for selfish gain only, and then bam, here it comes, now you're cursed.
I love one of the things you read there, and I mean, we kind of talked about this before. You mentioned it. It's not like they die and then come back as this. It's like they
Oh,
slowly decay, and like that's something that I've never seen before. But I think it would be really interesting to have your party like come across someone who is in the process of turning into one of these creatures.
I kind of want to
Um,
play a character that ends up turning into a banshee in like a later iteration of that
oh
campaign,
man,
just because
that
how
could be
much
really
fun could
cool.
that be? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, that would be really fun.
Or like an NPC you meet a couple times, where the first time they're like beautiful and nasty. The second time they're like, ooh, there's something weird there. The third time they're Banshee.
Yep, exactly.
Um,
uh,
one thing I just popped over third edition. It's in Monster Manual number 2. It says a Banshee is the spirit of a strong-willed, selfish individual of a humanoid race. Because of its rage at the loss of its own life, it delights in bringing death to any living creature it encounters, which I think is interesting. I like different parts of both of those descriptions there. So I like that it's just humanoid here because I think it opens it up a little bit more. And I
Yeah,
think
why not?
in my games I would probably do humanoid instead of just elf and instead of just woman as well. But the other thing there that's different is because of rage at the loss of its own life. I think that's very interesting and
Yeah,
a
like
little
something
different.
about that moment was particularly gruesome. I don't know if that's the right word, but powerful.
Yeah.
Something was just yeah,
Not yet. It's almost like
like
a revenant.
oh gosh, yeah. Well, that sounds like another video we'll have to do. Let us know in the comment section. But yeah, one thing that's interesting about the Banshee, at least from the 5e standpoint, is the feature Sorrow Bound. And because of this moment of their death, which is consistent from 3rd edition to 5th edition, interesting side note 4e didn't have Banshees. Not sure entirely why, but they didn't. So that moment of their death was so powerful that the Banshee actually is tied to that location and can only has a 5 mile radius from where they died. And there's just something really, really, really fun about that. And I like the storytelling potential of powerful emotions like that because that's something that a lot of players and storytellers will easily connect to. And I think players will just really want to engage with something like that because it's going to be just interesting.
That's the type of thing that you could use if this is going to be like a big monster and not just something that they run into. If this is going to be like a set piece style thing, you could really make that place significant, and they could start to see clues and like pictures of maybe like pictures if
Yeah.
it's an elven one, pictures of a beautiful elven woman, and you know, journal entries like that kind of thing, and they could start to piece together like some of the story before they actually encounter the monster, or maybe after, maybe they have a quick run in and then she escapes or whatever.
I
Um,
like some of the if I remember correctly, the Tasha's Cauldron of Everything has some environments that are tied from powerful emotions, and I feel like you could probably really do some fun things with that in the terrain and location of the Banshee, especially if the Banshee's been there for a while, and just really let those sorrow and rage just seep into the earth.
watch Ancient Relics and Hokey Religions because I did that.
Hey, so we did have an anecdote for this one.
We'll get into that. We'll get
Yeah.
into that a little later. Another feature that they have that I really like is beauty hoarders. Essentially, the little flavor text here is the vanity that inspired the Banshee's cursed creation persists in undeath. These creatures covet beautiful objects, fine jewelry, paintings, statues, and other objects of art. At the same time, a Banshee abhors any mirrored surface, for it can't bear to see the horror of its own existence. A simple glimpse of itself is enough to send a Banshee into a rage. There's two sides to that. One, I like beauty hoarders as a it's one of those features that is like, hey DM, here's a reason why you could put a cool treasure in there for your players to find. Beauty hoarders, they like to collect things. It's like a dragon's hoard type thing. And then the other side of that is like, that's kind of cool, especially because you have, if you've read like the Drist novels or that kind of thing, there's like a banshee that at one point he goes and like has a conversation with and whatever because he's trying to take some sort of item. if if you're using this monster for that purpose, where like it's an NPC that your characters are going to talk to and try to do something with, well, then I don't know, you have the opportunity of like, maybe there's just something really reflective, or your paladin's armor is like, he said, he's like, oh, it's so shiny you could see yourself on it. Well, suddenly Banshee's going to see itself and go nuts. Like,
Yeah, I was gonna say this. There's a lot of fun things that you could do in effect. We talk about role playing and combat. We had a video that's right up here, and it's this is a way that your monster can do that. You could spend time like focusing on high charisma based characters. Maybe they're more attractive. Maybe there's some kind of weird plot where all the pretty people in town are missing. I don't know why. It's like, well, the Banshee killed him. Comes out at night because the thing died in town. Gosh, that would be just so interesting. But another fun part about this is that Banshee refuses to accept any responsibility for what happened to it, too.
Yep.
Right? So the divine wrath that we read earlier, this curse came upon them because of the way that they have lived their lives. And it is their fault that they're in this condition, but not from the point of view of the Banshee. So yeah, there's a lot of fun storytelling potential here. There's a lot of fun ways that you could create mystery, create some horror, kind of just make it creepy. I feel like you could have some fun with your party.
Yeah, and some of the abilities that it has actually really tie into how you could do that too. Is first one here is detect life, it can sense life within a 5 mile radius, general direction, but not exact locations. So if you have players like walking through a town or whatever, well, that banshee knows that they're there, doesn't know exactly where they are. So you're well within your rights to have this thing just and then just some they're just seeing this thing just
What was that?
swoop past, yeah,
Yeah.
and now you're giving them the expectation that there's something here. You're also creating tension because they know, I mean, unless they're just the type of players that are just like, I want to fight it right now. Like if if they're not, then you're creating tension because whatever location they're in and whatever reason they're there, they know that this other thing is there too.
Yeah, and like you
Um,
were saying, going over some of these abilities and features. I mean, this really is like a save or suck kind of a creature, right? So that concept
oh yeah,
is if you fail your save, it's bad, and if you succeed, it's not so bad. And two of them right off the bat are huge in that way. You have horrifying visage, which just looking at this thing is going to make you need to do a wisdom saving throw to save or be frightened for a minute. Or actually, that's an action it takes. Excuse me. And they can repeat the saving throw, but that's a very powerful battlefield control effect, right? Your barbarian, they're great in all the physical things, but this is a wisdom save, and there's a really good chance that they're not going to be able to make that. And now all of a sudden, that massive pile of hit points is useless because they're cowering in a corner and can't approach. And this banshee's just going to fly around doing anything they want.
mm-hmm. And then
Of
the
course,
other one.
yeah. I mean, if you've played Destiny, Omnigul, before they patched lowering that scream, that's just from that moment on. That's the only thing I think of when I think of a banshee. It's just
Oh yeah.
I yeah. I'm not even gonna try to do that because my voice is a little weird today too. But it's like a DC 13 con save or you drop to 0 hit points. So this thing can drop you to 0 immediately. And that's if you're not strong physically, that's the case. But if you are and you're not strong mentally, oh, guess what? You're going to be afraid and you can't approach. So there's a lot of very powerful mechanics here that they could take advantage of.
So everything we've mentioned so far, these are like a fifth edition abilities, and in fifth edition as well, it's a CR4 creature. In third edition, it is a challenge rating 17, which is very different.
Yeah, that's pretty high.
Yeah, right. Even with the bloated numbers of third edition, that's still much higher than a CR4. So it still has most of the same abilities. Another one there is Charisma Drain, which an individual struck by a banshee must make a Fortitude save, DC 26, or permanently lose 1d4 points of charisma or 2d4 on a critical hit.
Save your
Uh,
sorcerers, save your bards, because they don't want any part of this. It's just they don't want it. Nope, no, thank you.
so you have that, and then on top of that, just the other abilities that we've mentioned already were just a little bit more brutal. Horrifying appearance. If you fail that save, you lost either a D4 of strength, a D4 of dex. No, wait a second. Horrific appearance. 60 feet of the banshee. Any creature must make a Fortitude save of 26, or permanently lose a D4 of strength, a D4 of dex, and a D4 of con.
So all of them.
All of them.
Man,
Yeah,
old school D&D, like I'm sorry, 5e, all you 5e players that are just learning D&D now. Y'all spoiled. That's all I
you
got
got
to
it
say
easy.
about that. You too.
This is why you have people ask the question of like, how do I make my games more deadly? It's because like this is where they came from, so this is what they're
Yeah.
used to. It still very very similar like style and everything, but so much more brutal. Back then there was like everything that it had was magnified, and then it also had the abilities that directly attacked your
hmm
stats.
And
Um,
hopefully, by the time you're able to encounter and handle a CR-17, maybe some of these things, I'm not as familiar with third edition as I am with, all of the other ones actually, but uh, you might have some abilities and or spells to be able to combat some of these effects. I don't know. Maybe let me know in the comment section if you do, because that's something I really would like to know.
Blue Jack and John, we need you.
Yes, we do. So, Josh, if you're running a Banshee encounter, what are some of the things you're probably going to think about as far as from the point of view of the Banshee? Because the Banshee, outside of having a low strength, every other stat that they have, dexterous, con, okay, but they're intelligent. Wisdom's kind of average, and they're very strong-willed. So I feel
Mm.
like you could play them fairly intelligently, and you're not like out of bounds here.
Yeah, so the thing with the Banshee is it knows what it's doing. It has a very specific set of skills, and it's very good at those things. And a
Yes,
lot
yes,
of
it
them
does.
are a lot of them are very old, so they're gonna know how to do things right. For whatever reason, I see them in like a destroyed city or town or something. It could be anywhere, but the best way to use them or how they would fight best, I think, is they would be seen, and then if you have I mean a maze would be incredible, but like any sort of
Mm,
building with rooms that you could really make use of the incorporeal movement, or like flight as well is a nice little movement boost that you have there, but using that to like isolate people, get them separated, because realistically, I mean, it's got what, 58 hit points, 12 AC, not super hard to hit one. They do have a lot of resistances, but
mm-hmm.
you're still gonna, if you have decent strikers,
Yeah,
it's gonna get killed pretty fast.
this is
So it's
definitely a challenge for parties that don't have a magical weapon at their
yes,
disposal. So that's gonna make the 58 hit points feel pretty big.
yeah, it's
But
gonna make them feel exactly twice as big.
yep. But if you do have magical means of attacking this thing, then 58 points of damage is not that hard to do, especially if you have a
Mhm.
group of 5 or 6.
Yeah,
You're gonna burn it.
which is why separating and moving away and not letting players be able to like gang up, it's going to help out a lot,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you throw in abilities like whale, where
Yeah.
maybe you do that while people are separated. Suddenly players have to decide like, am I going to try to bring this person back up? Am I going to try to fight this? Like, I don't know
Mm-hmm.
if it could whale more than once a day, or like I don't know how that works, because realistically, if your player thinks that it could only do that ability once, they're metagaming, because
That's
that's,
true, unless they have experience with a banshee in the past.
in my opinion, even if they have experience with the Banshee, there's no way they would know that the whale can only be done once per day. They might be like, I've only ever heard
Mm.
it do the whale once, but like I don't know.
That's a pretty good point. I think that's something to consider in your games. But yeah, I think obviously they're going to want to try and take advantage of the whale. This is the banshee that's trying to be seen and heard. Like you said, it's got a speed of 40 feet, so it's going to fly in to probably get to a very advantageous spot. Use that 30-foot radius, scream, maybe fly up in the air so that they can't be attacked by melee weapons, and then just scare the daylights out of people and just rip them to shreds. I think that's kind of the way I think you should approach that. It's intelligent, so I think if it was outnumbered, perhaps it would run away to fight another day.
Like so.
I feel like there's also an emotional element of it. If there were, you could probably provoke it out of thinking wisely, but
yeah,
if it had burned
like
its whale and it was like, I don't know if I got this one, I could see it running.
I could see both of those it being like fair reactions. So just to give y'all a quick story of a way that I used Banshee in a game in Ancient Relics and Oki Religions, which you should watch or listen to or whatever. There is a ruined elven city called Molesmere. I'm sure there are plenty of reasons why like the 5e description would work, but especially the third edition one, a selfish individual of a humanoid race rage at the loss of its own life. That sort of creature living in the decadence and glory that Molesmere was, and suddenly seeing it destroyed in the corruption, I could see that
Oh yeah.
uh, really like doing some nasty stuff, tying them to that place, that kind of thing. And now they're a banshee just wandering around that area. So I kind of did that. I'm pretty sure I had you guys like at least hear it or something like that before you fought it. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't
we
remember.
had gone to the church because we were hoping to find some maybe item that was left behind before the corruption spiked and did the thing and the disaster hit. And so I think while we were in there, I don't know if we had found it or we were leaving or before we got there, how whatever timing it was, but I don't know if you might have had. I don't think we heard it scream, but I think we heard something like a struggle, maybe. I don't know.
Tell you one thing though, the little Tasha's thing that you had in there with like certain places that might spike like sadness or happiness or anger or whatever. That place was a place of sadness,
Mm-hmm.
and Michael failed his role and
Yeah,
was
I think both halflings.
yeah, both halflings failed that role.
Mm.
They probably got twos, right?
Yeah, because definitely didn't get ones. They get to
um,
re-roll those.
and then you guys went into that building. You fought the thing right from the start. Whale, Michael drops. Of course, he failed that roll. After that, I think you dropped it fairly easily because you pretty much all had at least +1 weapons and 50 or hit points. A monk with
Echo
a +1 weapon, just
was just you gave him magic hands. That's the way it works with that one, and he was just pop 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 like 4 attacks every round because you know
yeah.
just burned through the key. But it did
I
make for some interesting decisions, right? So Melly,
yes,
because Mac drops to 0 hit points right away, Melly, it kind of removed her out of that fight too because she had to go run over to save him. So then it was almost like 2-on-1 instead of like 3-on-1 at that point. And we're a party of 4, so it could do some very funny things where player choices all of a sudden become amplified just because of a bad roll of the dice.
I think there's a couple different ways that you could use banshees like that. Like in this specific one, I didn't necessarily use it as like a super difficult like boss battle thing. It was more of a random encounter that kind of just further drove home the story of an area and the danger of a place and also the sadness of the place. If I was trying to make it brutal, say like the hag cut that you guys fought in, where there's the big room and then all sorts of other rooms with dangers in each of those rooms, I would do that with a banshee. Especially you could use
Yeah.
the the Tasha's like enhanced emotions thing. If you have
Mm-hmm.
one of she would banshee would know where those are and use that to advantage, and then just kind of just
Oh yeah.
lead you there. Suddenly you have to roll, and now you're sad and you're just sitting in the corner crying instead of like
Yeah.
it's
And if we're just thinking of that too, like if you come into a room, say like because Vale is usually in the back around Melly because he's got the bow. So let's just, for argument's sake, say the Banshee comes in, does horrifying visage, Vale fails his saving throw, and now the Banshee's just going all after Melly, and he's just like,
yeah.
I can't do anything about this. Like that,
Mm-hmm.
just it's like isolation within an isolated room. It could get ugly quick. I think
Yeah,
sounds about right for the Banshee.
it does sound about right. Yeah, I really do love this creature. I think whether you're throwing up some low level party members against it, or at least like low magic party members against it, it could be a pretty brutal fight. And especially with that whale or horrifying visage, really make for a memorable encounter, whether they steamroll it or not. Those two abilities being out there, when that affects a character, it changes the world for them because suddenly
Oh
they're
yeah.
not so strong. Suddenly they're not so tough. They have to think of the world and view the world differently after that because of that encounter. And that's one of the reasons why I love banshees as a creature.
I mean, if you're watching this video and you've got to this point too, we'd love to hear how you might have used banshees in any adventures that you've gone on or prepared. One thing I think of note is that, and this is as a DM, I think you need to just kind of read your players and read the table here. I think because the whale can just take anybody. I mean, you could have 100 million hit points. You fail that one saving throw, and now you have zero. That certainly has the potential to just feel very cheesy to a player. So if you have a group of players you think might be a little more sensitive to that, this might be an encounter that you might just save for another group. Be sensitive to that. I think everybody that's at the table should realize that things like that can happen. But there could just be something about that that just feels really like a real low blow. So just be aware of that, I think.
Yeah, I mean, instead of taking all their hit points, you could always take a D4 of strength, dex, and con.
Yeah, it's much worse in the past. So just remember, you can always remind your players, like, hey man, these guys used to be way worse. I'm being nice to you.
Yeah, like Jake said, let us know all your interesting past experiences with banshees or future plans to use them against your players. Let us know in the comments because we love to talk about that kind of stuff and bounce ideas off each other. And please let us know what monster you would like us to talk about next because we need another creature to feature.
Josh, you okay?
Yeah, I'm feeling like a divine wrath right now. Like I'm a little sorrow bound, I'm not going to lie, because I forgot to tell them to like, comment, and subscribe. And it's just a
Mm,
horrifying visage. It's
yeah.
driving me crazy. And I don't know, it's a horrific appearance. I'm feeling like my charisma has been drained.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just going to be tough for anyone to detect life from me after this because I forgot to tell people that they should like, comment, and subscribe on this video.
Yeah, if you don't ask them to do it, they won't do it.
I'm just going to wail.
Oh gosh.